Hey everybody, what's going on? Let's go ahead and get this full screen here. It's Voodoo here, and I am about to make my picks, about to fill up my bracket basically for the 2014 NCAA basketball tournament. I normally don't, post videos and stuff like this just because it's mainly a video game channel, but I really do like sports, so I like to do some sports videos every now and then for people on my channel who may like sports, or for the random passerby who might be searching for this type of thing on the internet. So, just a couple things before we start making our picks. Number one, obviously there's a lot of people in this tournament, a lot of teams, and so although I've followed a lot of college basketball this year, I haven't, seen all of these teams play. So more or less some of these picks are just going to be, gut feeling, when I know about the history of the tournament, and just based on what I've heard, read on the internet or heard from analysts or whatever. So some of these picks will be kind of blind, I guess, in that sense. Other ones, I do know a lot, I do know some information about a lot of the teams in the tournament, so I'll be making those picks accordingly to what I know. And, finally, I am a huge supporter of the Kansas Jayhawks. That's my team. So, yeah, just thought I would let you know, where my allegiances lie. For you to keep in mind while I make these picks. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start in the South region, and we're going to go ahead and start with the game between Florida and UA or Mount St. Mary's. Obviously, without much hesitation, I'm going to put Florida as the winner of that game, for obvious reasons. They're best team in the country, and whoever they play doesn't stand much of a chance. So we're going to move right on to the Colorado and Pittsburgh matchup. And actually, for this, I like Pittsburgh in this game. I think that, right now they're broadcast to have a pretty high chance to upset Colorado. And I think Pittsburgh gets through to the round of 32. Now we look at VCU and Stephen F. Austin here. And historically in the tournament, 5s have often lost to 12s. I believe 3 12s beat their 5 seed in last year's tournament. And looking at these two, I think that this is going to be a 12-5 upset. I'm going to choose Stephen F. Austin over VCU. I think Stephen F. Austin, they've won 20-something games in a row now. They're obviously on fire coming into this tournament. You don't win all those games on accident, and I think, coming in as 12 seed, I think they have a pretty good chance to top VCU. So I'm going to pick Stephen F. Austin in the upset in this one. So moving on, we have UCLA and Tulsa. Danny Manning, former Kansas assistant and player, has done a tremendous job as the coach of Tulsa. Unfortunately, I think that they are going to be a one-and-done team. I think UCLA gets it done. I think they beat Tulsa and move on. Moving to the Ohio State and Dayton matchup. I don't know too much about Dayton, but Ohio State, they've been inconsistent this year at times. They had a really bad run there, but still, I think that Ohio State, they have that tournament experience. Obviously, Aaron Kraft leading that team. Been there, done that. Great coach, great players. I think that they handle Dayton and get through. Syracuse and Western Michigan. I'm not crazy high on Syracuse the way they've been playing lately, but I do think that they will get it together to get through Western Michigan. I think they will advance. Move on to New Mexico and Stanford. New Mexico is probably the most underrated team in this regional, and so I think that New Mexico is going to get it done against Stanford in advance. And then we look at my team right here, the Kansas Jayhawks, obviously looking like they're going to have to play the first 2 rounds without the services of Joel Embiid, but I do not think that Eastern Kentucky is going to be the team to take down Kansas this year. I think Kansas gets through, I should say. I know 2s are vulnerable to 15s, but I don't think in this scenario that's going to be the case. So, on to the East. 2 moves on from here. Virginia and Coastal Carolina. Again, a 16 has never beaten a 1, so we can go ahead and pretty much pencil Virginia in here. Memphis and George Washington. I actually think that the higher seed is going to win this time, Memphis. They've played tough opponents all year. They've played well in a lot of these games, and I think Memphis will move on. Cincinnati and Harvard. Harvard seems to be a sexy pick right now in the upset of Cincinnati. A lot of teams are picking Harvard to upset the Bearcats. I'm going to go, a little against the grain here, even though you would think that picking the favorite wouldn't be against the grain, but in this particular case, I feel it is. I'm actually going to pick the higher seed Cincinnati. I think that they will beat Harvard. All this talk about Harvard and the upset potential, I think, is going to get Cincinnati on notice and they're going to make sure that they're up and you know, they're going to take care of Harvard. Moving on to Michigan State and Delaware. Now, Michigan State, everyone and their mother is picking Michigan State to win the national championship this year. I don't know if I'm that sold on this team, but I am sold on them enough to get them past Delaware, so they'll move on. North Carolina and Providence. Right here, I have another upset pick. I'm picking Providence to beat North Carolina. North Carolina has been a walking conundrum this year on the floor. They really bring it against the upper level competition, but when they play teams that that probably they should beat, they don't. They play poorly. They've been inconsistent all year. Providence is hot, coming off of a tournament championship. I think North Carolina again stumbles out the gate. They have not been very successful in recent tournaments, and I think Providence gets the upset here over North Carolina. Iowa State and I guess this is what, North Carolina Central. Iowa State is a team that I'm very high on right now going into this tournament. I think they're smoking hot. They have great players, and being a KU fan and watching us play that team 3 times this year, I know how good they are. Iowa State gets in past NC Central. Moving to the bottom here, Connecticut and St. Joe's. St. Joe's certainly has a chance here to upset Connecticut, but I like what I've seen overall this year from Connecticut, so I have UConn moving on over St. Joe's. And Villanova and Milwaukee. Again, I think Villanova will get the win and move on over Milwaukee. So let's head over to the Midwest, which is seen as possibly the toughest, the toughest region. I'm just going to be checking my battery percentage on my computer to see if I have to plug it in. We're going to start at the top, and again, pencil in the 1 seed Wichita State. Now we're going to move to this very intriguing matchup here between Kentucky and Kansas State. I'm actually going to choose Kansas State. I think Kansas State is going to knock out Kentucky in the first round. Kentucky does not play with any team chemistry at all this year. They've done some impressive things, but, you know, when the going gets tough in games, when it's close down the stretch, this team folds like a cheap tent. I think Kansas State is going to give them a heck of a run. If I'm not mistaken, this game is going to be in St. Louis, so there's going to be a ton of Kansas State supporters there. Obviously, Kentucky will bring their contingent of fans. But I like Kansas State. I've seen them play. Marcus Foster is a great player. Thomas Gibson inside will be a great matchup with Julius Randle, and I think that this team, Kentucky, is too inexperienced and inconsistent. They have no tournament experience, and they've been known to go soft when the going gets tough down the stretch of games. I think they're out in the first round. So, moving on to St. Louis and the winner of NC State and Xavier. I'm going to go ahead and put St. Louis through here. I don't know a whole lot about this game, to be honest with you, but, you know, we're going to go ahead and pick St. Louis. All right, so moving on, Louisville and Manhattan. Louisville probably the most underrated, or the most underrated seed in this entire tournament. And we are going to go ahead and pick Louisville. They're a 4 seed. They should probably be a lot higher than that. I'm not sure why they're not, but you know what? It is what it is, and so Louisville is going to get it done over Manhattan. UMass and the winner of Iowa-Tennessee. Now, I'm actually going to pick the winner of Iowa-Tennessee. I think either of these two teams, Iowa and Tennessee, is going to upset UMass. These are both really good teams, especially Iowa. I think really if Iowa gets through, they have the best chance with Roy Devin Marble and company. And I was looking at some statistics, and they've said for the past, I don't know, several years in a row that a team that has won a play-in game has advanced in the first round of the tournament, and this is where I think it happens right here. I think the winner of this game beats UMass and moves on. So now we've got Duke and we have Mercer. This one's pretty easy for me, going with Duke. I think that they'll get it done. Texas and Arizona State. This is another upset pick. I have Arizona State over Texas. I think... I just think that Texas, they had their moment, in the middle of the year. They were looking really good and impressive, put the beat down on Kansas. But here down the stretch, they have struggled. They went to Kansas State and got absolutely blown out of the building. Faltered again in the Big 12 tournament, and so I just think that Arizona State is primed to upset Texas. Michigan over Wofford. Michigan. Not a whole lot of thought to that. Michigan's really good. All right, on to the final region, the West. Arizona and Weber State, once again, easy pick, Arizona. Oklahoma State and Gonzaga. Oklahoma State, another team that I'm really high on. Again, probably way underseeded. They had that bad stretch there. Marcus Smart was suspended, but Oklahoma State's playing like a champion right now. Oklahoma State over Gonzaga. Oklahoma and North Dakota State. Another highly talked about game as possible, as a possible upset. North Dakota State over Oklahoma, and you know what? I'm going with the upset. North Dakota State beating Oklahoma. Now, moving on, we've got San Diego State and New Mexico State. San Diego State, tremendous defensive team, held Kansas to 59 points in Fog Allen Fieldhouse. Not easy to do. They get it done and move on. Baylor and Nebraska. I like Baylor. Baylor has come on strong of late. They had a great Big 12 tournament, made it all the way to the finals, and I think Baylor is coming into their own right now. That talent is shining through. I think Baylor gets it done. Creighton and UL Lafayette. I was actually at the Sun Belt tournament all this past weekend. I saw in person LA Lafayette win that tournament and get their bid. I'll be rooting for them, but I just can't. I can't put them advancing past Creighton and Doug McDermott. Creighton gets it done and wins. Oregon and BYU. Haven't seen a lot of these two teams play. Oregon obviously just had the recent upset of Arizona. I'm going with Oregon in this one. And then we've got Wisconsin and American. It's got to be Wisconsin for me. This year, no 15-2 upset. Alright, so now we're going to move on. Who gets into the Sweet 16? Back in the South, Florida against Pittsburgh. I've got Florida advancing. I feel very confident about that one. Stephen F. Austin and UCLA. Stephen F. Austin did get the upset in my prediction over VCU, but I think UCLA is going to actually get it done over Stephen F. Austin. Now, as we look down here, we've got Syracuse and Ohio State. I've told you before, I'm not big on Syracuse. I don't think that they've been playing well. They have been really struggling to score points. I don't think that they've done a good job as far as that goes, and so because of that, I am picking Ohio State to upset Syracuse and head into the Sweet 16. Kansas and New Mexico. This is a very difficult game for me because Kansas is going to be without Embiid for this game. This is a very bad matchup. New Mexico is a very good team with a quality big man, Cameron Bairstow, and it's not a good matchup, but I'm going to have the faith, and I'm going to believe that KU is going to get it through. Tarek Black's going to have a big game defensively on Bairstow. Kansas gets the win and moves on and gets Joel Embiid back. Alright, down to the East, Virginia and Memphis. I have Virginia winning this again. I like what Virginia's doing. They've proved that they can win consistently and beat good opponents, and Virginia wins. Cincinnati and Michigan State. I have to go at Michigan State in this one. I just like them too much. I think that they get through. Providence and Iowa State. I got to go with my boys from Iowa State. They're great. They can shoot the ball. They've got one of the most interesting and versatile big men in the country in George Niang. Iowa State. Connecticut and Villanova. I like Villanova and what Jay Wright's been doing. I think they advance. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 I got coming out of the East. Over to the Midwest, Wichita State and Kansas State. Now this is going to be a heck of a matchup. Two in-state rivals going at it in the Midwest, and I think that this is going to be a fantastic game. I think it's going to go, right down to the wire. So this game I'm pretty sure is going to be in St. Louis as well, and because of that, there's going to be a lot of fans from both there. It's going to be a great game. But I do think that Wichita State is going to get through Kansas State. Now we look at Louisville and St. Louis. I think that this is a huge disparity between the 4 and the 5 seed. Louisville gets the win, I think, rather easily over St. Louis. Now we look at the winner of Iowa, Tennessee against Duke. I got to go with Duke again. I just think that Duke is in control right now. They're playing well. Jabari Parker is a great player, and I like Duke to beat whoever this winner is in this game. Arizona State and Michigan. Again, I like Arizona State, but I'm going to go with Michigan to win. 1, 2, 3, and 4, again, out of the Midwest. Now going to the West, we've got Arizona and Oklahoma State. Now this is going to be a tremendous game. I cannot wait. And I was very tempted to actually go with Oklahoma State to upset Arizona in this matchup. But the more and more I thought about it, I said, you know what? I don't know if I can do that. Oklahoma State still did have a large losing streak, even with Marcus Smart there. This is not going to be an easy game. This is not going to be an easy out at all for Arizona. But I think Arizona is going to get it done, move past Oklahoma State, and into the Sweet 16. North Dakota State had the upset over Oklahoma. They'll play San Diego State. I don't think that they upset San Diego State. San Diego State's defense is too good, and defense wins championships. San Diego through. San Diego State. So now we've got a matchup between Baylor and Creighton. And once again, I'm going to have to go with my guys from Baylor. I think that they're playing really well right now. I think Creighton, they've got good supporting characters, but they're more or less a one-man show. And if Doug McDermott struggles, Creighton will struggle. I think Baylor, with their NBA front line of players, will beat Creighton. So now we move on, Wisconsin and Oregon. And in this game, I'm going to go with Wisconsin. I think that they win and get through to the Sweet 16. So there is our Sweet 16 matchups. We're going to head back to the South to see who goes to the Elite Eight. We've got a game between Florida and UCLA. Once again, Florida, they're the best team in the country. Proved it all year long. They win. Ohio State and Kansas. Now, I'm working on the assumption here that Joel Embiid will return for this game for the Kansas Jayhawks. Kansas has had a lot of recent success against Ohio State. They've beaten them several times when they've played them, and they knocked out Ohio State in the Final Four 2 years ago to go to the national championship in New Orleans. And with Joel Embiid back, I like KU again to beat Ohio State and go into the Elite Eight. So now we look at Virginia and we look at Michigan State. And we say, who is going to come out of here? Obviously, as I mentioned, everyone is loving Michigan State right now. They're loving them. Well, right now, I have to be honest with you. I think that they're a great team, Michigan State. I think that they can go far in this tournament. And I do have them going past Virginia because I just think based off experience, Michigan State's going to get it done over Virginia. Virginia is not used to this success, and when they get to this point, they play a coach like Tom Izzo and the experience of Michigan State, they will falter. Michigan State to the Elite Eight. Then I look at Iowa State and Villanova. I like Iowa State again. I must say, I'm high on Iowa State. I really like how they're playing. I think that they advance. We got a 3-4 matchup in the Elite Eight in the East. Look at the Midwest. We have a matchup, Wichita State and Louisville. And for me, this is where Wichita State's magical season ends. I'm not sold on them as a Final Four team. They're 34-0, extremely impressive. If they get to this point, they'll be 36-0. But that strength of schedule means something to me. If they don't play anybody, this year they've only played 5 teams, period, who have even made the field of 64. For me, that's not enough to prove that they can hang in with the big boys. Louisville beats Wichita State and moves on. Then we've got a matchup between Duke and Michigan in the Midwest. Michigan has definitely come on as of late, but I just think that Mike Krzyzewski, the way Duke is playing right now, Jabari Parker, those guys clicking, I like Duke. I think Duke advances in this game over Michigan into the Elite Eight. Now we look finally over here at the Sweet 16. This is a tough game, Arizona and San Diego State. I really am kind of up in the air right now about this game. It's a tough one to pick. But you know what, for me, I think Arizona's going to fall here. I think San Diego State with that defense gets it done. They move into the Elite Eight. Finally, Baylor and Wisconsin. This is a tough one for me because I haven't watched a lot of Wisconsin play this year. I really haven't. I don't know too much about them. If we look at the comparisons here, we can look and see that Wisconsin has a BPI of 9 versus top 25. Baylor has not been very impressive. Wisconsin has. Wisconsin did beat Florida this year, which is very impressive. They beat Virginia. And they beat Michigan State 1 out of 2, which is impressive for me. And so, looking at that, I'm going to go with Wisconsin to upset Baylor. Well, not upset Baylor, but to knock off Baylor and move on to the Elite Eight. So here we go. It's the big time. Who is going to the Final Four? Well, starting in the South, we have a matchup between my Kansas Jayhawks and the Florida Gators. And as much as it pains me to say, even with a healthy Joel Embiid, I do not like Kansas's chances against Florida. They certainly have a chance, a good chance, but I still think that Florida, after watching them dismantle KU back in December, they're just too good defensively. There's too much experience, and KU just turns the ball over too much, which is what you can't do against a Florida team. Kansas does it all the time. They're not a good ball handling team. They turn the ball over too much. Florida will not allow you to make up for that, and therefore, as much as it pains me, I think Florida beats Kansas, moves into the Final Four, even with a healthy Joel Embiid. So move on to the East. Who comes out of the East? We've got a matchup between Michigan State and Iowa State. This is going to be a great Elite Eight game. Once again, everybody loves Michigan State, and I can't deny that they've got great players and a great coach. But to me, I still look at the fact that Michigan State, even when they had injuries, I understand they had injuries, but at the same time, they looked terrible during these injuries. And even if they have all their guys back and healthy, they haven't played with each other all year long. So are they going to be able to come into this tournament and have that sort of tremendous chemistry that can take them all the way to the championship? I don't necessarily see it happening. I think Iowa State is a team that's primed and ready to make a run. They're a team that can get insanely hot, can shoot the heck out of the basketball when they need to do it. I like Iowa State to head to the Final Four out of the East. Looking at the Midwest, we have a classic matchup between basketball blue bloods, Louisville and Duke. This is going to be a tremendous matchup for me. I really like the way that both teams are playing. Russ Smith is just on another planet. Jabari Parker is playing well. But you know what? Louisville gets it done. Rick Pitino, Russ Smith, those guys get it done over Duke. And my Final Four team, we've got a matchup between San Diego State and Wisconsin, which is another tough one for me to pick. And as we look at the information here, we see that, you know, both teams have a lot of big credentials here. I mean, they have both beaten a lot of good teams and have played well, but I think that Wisconsin is going to get it done and move on to the Final Four out of the West. So here's our Final Four. Who's playing for it all in the championship game in Arlington, Texas? Our first matchup features Wisconsin versus Louisville, and for me, it's got to be Louisville. The experience, the guys who went to the national championship last year, it's incredibly hard to go back-to-back years, but hey, Butler did it a few years ago. They actually managed to lose both of those games, which I think is probably even more impressive than the fact that they went. Louisville's got the resume, they've got the players, they've got the coach. They'll get it done and head to the national championship. Our next matchup is going to be a thriller. It's going to be an absolute thriller. Florida's great defense against Iowa State's tremendous shooting and offense. That's going to be can't miss TV. I'm tempted here to pick Iowa State in the upset, but you know, I've said all along, I believe Florida is the best team in the country. I still hold by that. Florida beats Iowa State in a classic to reach the championship game. So our championship is going to feature Florida and Louisville. It's going to be a tremendous matchup between two great teams. Billy Donovan, Rick Pitino head-to-head. It's going to be fantastic. But, again, I have to hold true to what I've been saying. Florida, to me, has proven all year long to be the most consistent school, beating everybody that they play pretty handily, proving that their defense is phenomenal. They start those seniors. They've got that experience. Those guys are primed and ready. They've been proving it all year long. I don't see them faltering in this game. I think Florida is your national championship. Now, for our tiebreaker, we have got to enter a score. So let me think about this. You know, Florida, I'm going to pick this game. I'm going to say Florida gets 75, and I think Louisville gets 68. I think Florida's defense holds Louisville to 68 points, and that's your national championship right there. So once again, just a quick glance, scroll down the brackets here so you can have one final look. I like the way these brackets worked out. Got some upset picks, you know, but in the end, I think I have the best team in the country winning the national championship and getting it done. So there it is. I'm going to go ahead and submit my bracket. I don't want to do this. I don't want to share my picks. I just want to be done. And there you go. As you can see, Voodoo 51292. Here's my bracket. It's submitted, and starting on Thursday, we're going to see probably just how wrong this is, because it's probably way off. But hey, that's it. That's my bracket. I do these every year. I have a lot of fun doing it. It's fun for me to, you know, pick these brackets, and I'll probably do a couple more where I do some crazy random things for my picks, but this is my real bracket here, my true picks. So, alright, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see how the tournament goes. I can't wait. Hopefully it's a good tournament, and I guess we'll just see how this all plays out when it happens. So have fun watching the tournament, guys, and peace out.